Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Sit Down. Let's talk about why is it that Dave Allen continues to get into the ring, continues to count himself out before he's even got in there, and then loses in what promoters will always categorize as, potentially one of the biggest upsets, another Dave Allen comeback. And I'm not saying that he doesn't sometimes do good stuff, he does, but more times than not, he does disappoint. And I completely appreciate that he's a great ticket seller and promoters, I'm sure, love that about him. He sells out arenas, he's got a huge fan base, he's very likable, etc., etc. However, I really, really am so done with the marketing scheme around him being that this is going to be his next big return or his next big comeback. That's just not going to happen. He's totally past his prime. And we saw that displayed in the fight against Hrgovic last night, where in less than 3 rounds, Hrgovic got him out of there. Now, watching the fight, there was a moment where I did think perhaps his corner were a bit quick with the towel. And perhaps that's coming off the back of last weekend where there was so much stick given to Fabio Wardley's corner about how they didn't throw in the towel any quicker. So maybe there was some type of trepidation around that, some type of, better to be safe than sorry. But all in all, he was getting outboxed, he was getting outclassed. He wasn't setting up his overhand rights, he was just swinging them wildly. He should have been jabbing down to the body, jabbing upstairs, jabbing down to the body, trying to draw the lead, and then throwing the overhand, which he wasn't doing at all. And it was a lackluster performance. And I think with Dave Allen, as nice as he is, and he definitely comes across as a really, really nice guy, he does have a loser's mentality. He's a very content loser. And that's just not what you need when you're stepping into the ring, when you're facing off against opponents who truly believe in themselves. Hrgovic is one of those guys. He's got a great resume and he's being lined up for a fight against Moses Itauma in August. So let's talk a little bit about that fight. Hrgovic has gone on record and said that he's going to expose Moses Itauma. I mean, it's great that he has that type of belief in himself. Absolutely needs that. Dave Allen should learn from that. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. I feel quite strongly that Moses Itauma, he will face off against a big test in Hrgovic. Obviously, Hrgovic's experience speaks for itself. But Moses Itauma is just too quick, too versatile, and too varied in his punch output to be troubled, I believe, by Hrgovic. Hrgovic does the basics very, very well, and he does them quite repetitively. And last night was a clear example of that. However, it will be good for Moses to get in the ring with someone like Hrgovic. It's good for him to continue building on this experience. I would quite like by early 2027, if not late 2026, to see him in world title contention. I know a lot of people will probably feel like that's a rush, but I think that he's just got what it takes, and it would be great to see that in action. Particularly would love to see that fight with Daniel Dubois. But obviously Daniel Dubois is going to be tied up with the Fabio Wardley rematch, which was activated just on Friday, I believe, which, it puzzles me, honestly. It puzzles me that it puzzles me and it doesn't, I should say. It puzzles me on one side that Fabio Wardley would activate that rematch based on the beating that he got in the ring from Dubois. On the other hand, it doesn't puzzle me because who else is Fabio Wardley going to face realistically? He might as well dare to be great, dare to change the script, dare to change the narrative, and go in there and try and get that WBO back. I don't really see it happening, though. I think he hit his ceiling, honestly, and it was very, very sad to see, but I can't see the outcome of that fight changing drastically. But who knows? Because obviously when we saw him against Fraser Clark in the first fight, it went the distance and then it culminated in a draw. And then in the second fight, he got him out of there, very, very early on in the fight. So it is the heavyweight division and everyone has a puncher's chance. So we'll see what happens with that. So in terms of, boxing that also took place over the weekend, we saw over a stateside Brian Norman Jr. in a fight against Wagner. And Brian Norman Jr., he is absolutely the real deal. He got him out of there in 2 rounds. He was just so slick with it, so Yeah, so slick, so well timed, so strong. He really, really showed himself to be the class boxer that he is. And I think that, Wagner had taken a bit of time out of boxing and then been told by his brother that he has what it takes to kind of reach the top of the food chain of boxing. But that definitely wasn't on display last night in the fight against Brian Norman Jr. We'll be really interested to see what Brian Norman Jr. does next. On the same card, we also saw, actually, let me just circle back, because that fight with Brian Norman Jr. and Wagner, it ended really weirdly. There was like some very unprofessional things happening right at the end. So Brian Norman Jr., he overwhelmed Wagner. He had him in the corner, he overwhelmed him. Wagner took the knee. The ref was counting him in. He definitely wasn't making the count. He stood up and the ref was kind of like, giving him a bit of extra time to kind of make the count, which is an unusual thing to do. Anyway, counted him back in. Then Brian Norman Jr. did the same thing, overwhelmed him again. Then the ref gave him the count, but also called a time out, and then got the doctor to come and have a look at him. The doctor didn't even have gloves on at the time that he got up on the ring curtain. It was all very bizarre. I'd never seen anything like it, but I think that needs to tighten up a little bit. But yeah, on the same card, we also saw as the main event, Keyshawn Davis against Albright, and that was in the rematch, and it went the distance. It was a unanimous points victory. The question I had kind of thinking about that fight is Albright the type of opponent we would expect Keyshawn Davis to be getting out of there? So that's something that kind of gave me a little bit of pause, a little bit of a question mark, particularly because it's a rematch. Like, you already have this guy's number. And the commentator was saying about Albright, he's kind of like one of those blue collar guys in the sense that he does a lot of the basic stuff really well, but nothing really spectacularly. So someone with Keyshawn Davis's type of pedigree and, prospective talent, I personally feel Albright is the type of opponent he should be getting out of there. But either way, good to see him back in action. Really, really excited to see what he does next. Guys, let me know in the comments what you make of this fight with Hrgovic and Moses Itauma, and if you think that Hrgovic is going to be Moses' biggest test, and is there a chance that Moses might lose that fight? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hype this video, and share and like, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of The Sit Down.